Hello guys, Jules here and welcome back to Mystery Lake. Today we are with a new Tag Team GX who came out in the Broken Bond expansion, and particularly it is one of the most anticipated one, which is the Gardevoir&Sylveon GX, as you can clearly see from the picture here. So this was highly anticipated together with the Reshiram's Charizard because it seemed like it could work before the expansion came out, when just the proxies were around and something like that. It seemed that it could have some success. It found some success in Japan, where they play with some of the expansion in advance compared to the West, and it is actually a good card. So it was anticipated. It had success in Japan, and it did not find that same success in Europe or in the US now. Not the same amount of success. It is finding some. It is finding some, but it didn't win any international or anything. It didn't even got to top 8, I think. I didn't even I think it didn't even make it to top 8. But nevertheless, it's a very good deck that can become quite popular. I think that in the upcoming tournament we will see more and more of these guys. So just to get it straight, so what this card is doing is mainly moving around the energies while attacking, in order to set up, for example, more copies of this, so that you can constantly switch between one and the other, and take the KOs with one that eventually the one that is more appropriate given for the time being. And you can do that in multiple ways. So first of all, we are playing only 4 copies of this guy for Gardevoir/Sylveon, and then a Miss Majus and a Miss Dribus. Two pair of Miss Dribus and Miss Majus. This is just, of course, to use the power, and we don't really care about conceding 2 prizes, because if they KO, they still have to KO 2 Gardevoir/Sylveon, and they always have to do that in order to win. If we have 6 prizes, they have to take 2 KOs here in order to get 3 and 3. If we have 5, they still need to get 3 and go to 1, and then another 3 from another Gardevoir/Sylveon. And we are only playing those, so there is no possibility for them to take any KOs on other Pokemon. So the idea is exactly to have at least 2 Gardevoir/Sylveon all the time in the board, 1 in the active and 1 in the bench. Because, for example, turn 2, you might want to do attack with a Fairy Song and attach 2 Fairy Energy to the Gardevoir behind in the bench, and so that you can use the first one to set up the second. Then, for example, through the Acerola, you can take away the first one and attack with the second. But in the meantime, you will put the first one, you will put it back in the bench, and you can, while attacking with the Gardevoir GX, you can move energies back to that guy. So the idea is to use Fairy Song as many times as possible at the beginning, before, of course, the Gardevoir would get KO'd. In that case, you need to avoid that, and then start attacking with the Kaleidostorm. There are also, I do believe that there are two possible ways of playing this deck. One way, you charge 1 Gardevoir/Sylveon in the back till it has 6 energies, in order to do these Magical Miracle GX boosted, like the more powerful version. If you read what this attack says, it says that it deals 200 damage, and if the Pokemon has 3 more Fairy Energies attached, you shuffle all your opponent's hand all into his deck. And this is pretty amazing, because it means that your opponent is going to play a top deck, so always relying only on the card that he draws. Which, of course, it can go either way, because if that card that he draws is completely useless, then it's good for you. But if that card that he draws is a Cynthia, for example, or even a Lily, it's just as fine, and you will be able to play basically normal, like nothing happened. So you would have wasted, let's say, quote unquote, you would have wasted a bit of turn in setting up the Magical Miracle GX attack. That is the reason for the other way of playing this deck to exist, which is basically to attack at the beginning with the fairy energy, power up the Gardevoir with the fairy song, sorry, power up the Gardevoir in the back, and then once either one of or the other is ready to attack, start attacking with the Kaleidostorm GX, the Kaleidostorm, which not only deals 150 damage, but it also allows you to move the energy, move any number of energies to your Pokemon in any way you like. So in this way you attack with, let's say that you have 1 energy on one Gardevoir and 3 on the other one. You move only 1, for example, so that you have 2 and 2, and then you can attack with both. So it's a little bit more versatile, but of course the problem with this way of playing is that 150 damage is not really a lot. So you will not, well, unless you're playing against non-GXs, you are hardly going to take any KO with 150 damages. So you might need to two-shot guys. So for example, the Charizard, it's a 2-hit KO, but Mania, actually all of the Tag Team GX are 2-hit KOs. So it's a possibility to do this other way, if you have many cards to keep the Gardevoir&Sylveon safe. So if you have, I say 2 Acerola, or in your end, I mean 2 Acerola and maybe some Max Potion, then you can do that, because you know that you are going to keep the Gardevoir&Sylveon fairly safe each time, each of the Gardevoir&Sylveon. So that's the idea. By the way, both the attacks are okay. And eventually you want to, and also one thing that I didn't say is that with the other way around, so with attacking with the Kaleidostorm several times, eventually you will still be able to set up the Magical Miracle GX. It is just not the first thing you are aiming at doing. You do it afterwards, almost in some kind of late game, which might be a good idea, because at that time the opponent will have used already most of the supporters, because just to play. It will have used many of them, so it might not be that lucky in top decking one after you use the GX. So honestly, the way I prefer to play is to use the Kaleidostorm attack, and then after a few turns, so in a mid to late game, use the Magical Miracle GX boosted, so that the opponent has to shuffle these in. The Mischievous is clearly here to give consistency to the deck, because due to this mysterious message, we can once per turn discard him, knock him out actually, so giving a prize to our opponent. But we draw until we have 7 cards in our hand, and this is pretty good, because mostly as a supporter we don't want to use that many drawing supporters. In fact, we are not playing any except for the Judge maybe, but we want to play most of the time Green Exploration or Acerola, depending what we need, of course, or even Bill if we need Bills. So we need to draw a card eventually, but we can do that with Mismagius, so that we can also play other supporters later. So as you can see, this is a 43 trainer deck, so it's heavily reliant on the items and supporters, of course, to work. Let's go through all the items one at a time. So the adventure bag simply lets us search the deck for 2 Pokemon tools and then attach them to, and then we can put them in our end. And we are playing a few Pokemon tools that are very situational, but we're going to explain them later. The counter catcher, it's always handy to switch our opponent's Pokemon, and most of the time we're going to be able to play it because we will be behind in prizes thanks to the Mismagius. It's kind of the same reasoning that is behind the Buzzmosa deck, except that there you need to play 2 Mismagius, so that you can use Beast Ring already turn 1 on the Buzzmosa, and so on and so forth. But that's a different use, but same principle. The Dusk Stone are a truly amazing card, because you can evolve a Pokemon, Mischievous in this case, turn 1. It's insane. And if you can use it, of course with other ghost type Pokemon, but yeah, here we are using, of course, we are using it for the Mismatches. The energy retrieval is simple as that. Put 2 basic energy from your discard pile into our end, and we're playing 4 energy switch, which is why, and the fact that I'm playing this many is the reason why I prefer to attack with a Kaleidoscope, because if we have a good amount of energies in play, then we can move them around, not only with the Kaleidostorm attack, but also with the energy switch. So it will be fairly easy to get to the 6 energy needed to launch to use the Magical Miracle GX powered up. Without, it would be fairly easy to get to that point without wasting many turns at the beginning doing Fairy Song in order to give to one guy 6 energy. So that's why I prefer that other way of playing. So the Field Blower is now basically mandatory in every deck because of all the stadiums, the annoying stadiums that are being played, but also the tools. So it's fairly important. For example, if you're playing against a Wheezing spread, then you want to have the Field Blower to remove the spell tag, for example. If you are a Pikachu Zekrom and you're playing against this kind of deck, you want to use the Field Blower to remove these Fairy Charms. And yeah, of course, for all the stadium, if you are relying on the Nene or Lele, for example, you want to use this to remove the power plant. It's a very important card these days, I believe. So yeah, we're playing a one pair, but we might. It could be a good idea, for example, to put 2. That could be a good idea. Then we're playing 2 Max Potion. Because the idea is clearly simple. If we know that our Gardevoir is going to survive one attack from our opponent, then we can just use the Kaleidos, but maybe it will be left with like 60 HP or something. We do a Kaleidostorm attack. We give all the energies to a Gardevoir in the back, and then we switch them. I don't know, with Switch or with Goodsma, and we heal the Gardevoir in the back through the Max Potion, because he will have no energy left, so we can do that for free. And that's the reason for the mix for which the Max Potions are in this deck. The Nesball is clearly used to get ourselves more Gardevoir&Sylveon, and the Pad allows us to shuffle 2 supporter card from your discard pile into your deck, and these guys will almost likely be the Acerolas and the Green Exploration. Well, yes, it can be either of those, but most likely Acerola or Green Exploration. Pokegear, it's an amazing card in a deck that relies this much on using the right supporter at the right turn. Because if you are in the early game, we want to have a Green Exploration loop going. So when we use the Green Exploration, we draw 1 card and another Green Exploration, so that the next turn we can continue and use another Green Exploration, and so on and so forth, until we run out of Green Exploration, basically. So the Pokegear allows us to have, or at least gives us more chances to have the correct supporter at the correct time. In fact, we're playing 4 copies of it. And do note that it doesn't really need to be the Green Exploration. It could even be the Bill's Analysis, for example, for the same purpose. Although Green Exploration works much better. Bill Analysis is just because we couldn't put more than 4 Green Exploration, and Bill Analysis is fairly similar. But in the late game, you're going to be looking for Acerola and Goodsman, and maybe even Judge. But so that's why we're playing 4 copies of it, because we don't need it only at the beginning, we don't need it only at the late game, we need it throughout the whole game. The switch, as I said before, is used so that we can recycle, we can change the Gardevoir&Sylveon that is currently in play, so that now that we don't always have the same, but we can even discard, move all the energies to the ones in the bench, and then move the Pokemon with the switch. It might be even so. Normally we play more than 1 copies of which to do that, but in this case, thanks to mainly to the Green Exploration and the Bill Analysis, we don't really need to, because as soon as we want to switch, we can just use Green Exploration, get the switch, and switch. So it's that easy. We're playing then for the item. I think it's all. Yeah, these are the tools for stadiums. Given, as I said, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on that, but it is because it is true that all decks these days are playing a lot of stadiums. So usually a deck that can win the stadium wars, let's call it like that, it's in a favorable spot already. because you can remove, for example, the Heat Factory to a fire-based deck. You can remove the Thunder Mountain to a lightning-based deck. You can remove a Viridian Forest to a Malamar deck, for example. So you can, that you can do even with the Field Blower. You can remove what's the name? The Black Marker to a Greninja Zoroark, for example, or to any other dark type deck. So this is pretty important to have the multiple ways of winning the Stadium Wars. And in this deck we have tons of way. We have 4 Stadium ourselves, the Power Plant, Viridian Forest, and Wondrous Labyrinth, plus the Field Blower that we mentioned before. The Power Plant, let's focus mainly on the Power Plant, because okay, the Wondrous Labyrinth is clearly straightforward. We're playing Fairy type Pokemon, so it cannot Earth to make the non-Fairy type Pokemon attacks cost 1 colorless more. It can cause trouble to a lot of decks. For example, if you consider the Greninja Zoroark or the Reshiram Charizard, then they will not struggle that much in assigning 1 energy more. But if you consider already Zapdos or those deck that attacks with 1 energy, like the Gyarados or Executor, because they are there, at least on the online game they are there. So, or the Nuzzle March, if it still exists, they will be struggling quite a bit through this Wondrous Labyrinth. But also, even on the other one, even if it's easy for them to assign an energy, they still need to have it. And so it's as I said one time for some other card that I can't remember. If we force them in doing and playing in a particular way, different than the way that they would play normally, then it's already a success. Then it's already good to have a card like this in the deck. The Viridian Forest is very situational because we might need. We are playing 9 energy. We need 6 of them. So if some are prized and we are not drawing them, then the Viridian Forest is the way to get them, and we can get the Viridian Forest with the Green Exploration, which is a truly amazing card, by the way. But the one that I want to focus more is the Power Plant. The Power Plant is key in this deck, and it needs to be played at a very specific turn, which is the same turn in which we are going to do the Magical Miracle GX powered up. The powered up Magical Miracle GX. Because can you imagine the situation? You are going to if you do the attack, the powered up attack, you are going to make the opponent shuffle his end into the deck. So you will have only 1 card. One card next turn where that he has top decked. So if that card is a supporter, okay, then everything is useless. But another way that could be safe is that card is, for example, a Dedenne, or a Tapu Lele, or yeah, one of those Pokemon there, like, well, one of those 2 mainly, or even a Jirachi. Oh, okay, no, Jirachi doesn't count. So one of those 2 Pokemon, and we ideally the turn we do the Magical Miracle GX, we also put the Power Plant in play. No matter what the current stadium is, what is the current stadium, we play the Power Plant so that it cannot rely on drawing those powerful drawing Pokemon such as the Lele or the Dedenne, because this stadium will cancel their abilities, so they will have no abilities basically, so they will not work, in other words. So it cannot rely on that, and it cannot rely on the card that he has in his hand because he doesn't have an hand. So the only way, if we do that with this stadium and the Magical Miracle GX attack, the only way he could save himself is to top deck a supporter, which is unlikely. I mean, it's not that unlikely, but it's unlikely. So that is the idea behind the having the Power Plant. So denying the possibilities of getting back into the game with the Dedenne or Tapu Lele GX. As for the supporters, we have mentioned the 2 most important ones, which are Acerola, clearly, and the Green Exploration. So normally we want to start with the Green Exploration, get all the items that we need each turn. So each turn we will get 1 item or tool or whatever. 1 item or another supporter, of course, and another Green Exploration. And this is so that we know that we will have all that we need constantly in our hand at the beginning. Afterwards, if we or if we have a mismatch that we don't want to use the ability, then to do that we need to use the build analysis, because once this in play, once this is in play, we cannot use the green exploration anymore because this guy has an ability. We can remove it. We can remove it through the use of its ability. But if we have 7 cards, then we cannot use the ability. We will use the build analysis to try and get the items that we need, because this is it does the same thing as the green exploration, except that it only concerns the first 7 top cards, and you can reveal up to 2 trainer cards. Um, so from stadium to tools to item and other support. So, and the Acerola, it's a key for the late game, because it allows you to constantly switch between one Gardevoir and one Gardevoir/Sylveon and the other one. So ideally, at the beginning you get the Acerolas with the green exploration, then you use the greens until you know that the Gardevoir is safe. Until you know that the Gardevoir is safe and sound in the active position, because it cannot be knocked out by your opponent, then you play green exploration. But the first turn in which, for example, let's say a Vikavolt attacked and dealt 220 damage, then you know you KO the Vikavolt with the Kaleidostorm, but you know that you have only 40 HP left. So almost anything, if almost everything can knock you out. Even for example, if the Vikavolt had the choice band, you have like 10 HP. So even a Shrine could knock you out. So in that turn, you don't use the green, but you use the Acerola. And in the meantime, if you've played this deck correctly, you will have another Gardevoir ready to attack in the bench. And that's the idea behind the Acerola, which is fairly important, and that's why we are going to take it back with the Pulpad most of the time. Maybe together with the green exploration, or we take 2 copies of this and we get them with the green exploration that we have in hand. So there's a multiple way of playing, but it's really relies on these 2 cards going well together. Then we have the goods, which of course it's used to take strategic KOs. The judge, it's in case we don't have anything pretty much. Okay, this we might even take it out, but it's useful as always to disrupt our opponents, and while also allowing us to draw. So we will never use this card, of course, after having used the GX, because no matter what's our situation, it will be in a worse situation than us, our opponent. So the only way we have to use the judge after having done the powered up GX, it's if in the first card that he drew after the GX he got a supporter. So in this case, for example, in that case, he used the Lily, and then the turn after we judge, so that he is back with playing with 4 cards. So this deck is playing a considerable amount of tools, which is why we're playing the adventure bag, and these tools are all very situational, as in they are all for specific matchups. The Stealthy Hood, for example, it prevents all effects of your opponent's abilities done to the Pokemon that is wearing this, and that is clearly aimed at the Vileplume that has seen some play recently. The Vileplume with the pollen puff or something like that. The disgusting pollen, which makes him invulnerable to the attack of basic Pokemon. And yeah, we're attacking only with basic Pokemon and only with GXs. So with this Stealthy Hood, we can attack through the Vileplume abilities. So this is mainly for that matchup. The Fairy Charm Lighting is of course for the Pikachu Zekrom matchup, or well, it can help, I guess, even in matchup with the Zapdos if they are using the Tapu Koko GX, or Zeraora as an attacker, I don't know. But mainly is aiming clearly at the Pikachu Zekrom, because it lets you be invulnerable to the attacks of that guy. So just notice, if they already played the Fit Blower and you attach this card to the Gardevoir/Sylveon, maybe you are completely you won. There's nothing you can do if he has already played the Field Blower. So that's something to notice, to take care of. And the Choice Helmet is also, well, that is fairly important for all the matchups against GXs, including Pikachu, Zekrom, and all the others, really. But it's aiming mainly at the Charizard Reshiram, because in fact with this regular attack with the I have no idea what's the name, but with the 230 damage attack, with the choice, but it will take one hit KO over Gardevoir&Sylveon because it has 260 HP. And that's fairly bad. So we played these choice helmets so that that doesn't happen. So that even with the choice band, it is going to deal us 230 damage and is not going to take any KO. And then we can ask roll the next turn. So all the reason is that we need to survive one turn even against the Reshiram Charizard to get the strategy going. And that's why we're playing 2 copies of the choice helmet. So these 6 items are all very situational, but most of the time, for example, they become good cards to be discarded with the Viridian Forest, for example, because we're not going to use them. So, for example, if you're playing against the Reshiram Charizard, we are never going to need the Fairy Charm, the Lightning Fairy Charm. So, yeah. And that would be it. So it's a fairly unique deck because you're playing only with 4 basic Pokemon, and which I find fairly interesting if you ask me. And also I don't see the deck losing to some particular matchup technically on paper. Then the reality is quite different, but still it is a valid deck. It is a fairly powerful deck. I have no idea why it didn't find that much success in the big tournament. It's only finding success in smaller local cups or whatnot, just like in smaller events. But I do believe that in the future we will see much more of it. Yeah, I don't know. I cannot say when, but in the near future, hopefully we will see much more of it because it really has some good matchups and some matchups in which it really shines. Of course, we are playing only with 4 GXs, so if you are facing that one guy that on the online game plays 4 times Upa, the baby Upa, which is immune to attacks from the GX, then we can consider go to the next one because the hood for some reason doesn't work on Upa, as it works on Vileplume. It doesn't work on Upa. I don't know why. So yeah, it suffers from still. We will need eventually to make it a fully competitive deck. We will need to add a non-GX attacker, like the Ninetales, for example, or someone else. But yeah, for the time being, this is a fairly good list. It's a fairly powerful list that we are going to test out in the upcoming videos. So before I leave, make sure let me remind you to follow us on YouTube. But more importantly, even on Twitch and Twitter, you can find a link in the description because we are currently doing a giveaway. We have plenty of codes to give, and we announced that the giveaway itself is on Twitch, and we announced that on Twitter. So you kind of need to follow those 2 profiles if you want to get some free codes. We still have Unbroken Bonds code as well, just a few of them. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.